voice box.
Yep.
Correct.
Yep.
Make sure you have a good connection between your brain and your voice box. Matt Locastro and Chris Barnes.
Matt Locastro.
Matt
Locastro.
Locastro.
Locastro. So the accent's on the low.
Is that Italian?
Okay.
It is Italian.
Okay.
I'm
What
a
is it?
Long Island Italian.
A Long Island.
Long
A
Island.
Long
How do people
Island.
guess these things from last names?
Locastro
Never
is
been
the
there.
because of how the vowels are.
Yeah, I don't know all of that.
Check again?
Linguistics.
Is it supposed to be on the? Oh, nice. That's
What if it was
sexy.
Spanish?
Is it us?
What if it was Spanish?
Be like
Vowels at the end.
Castro is Spanish.
Ha! Ha ha! Ah, that was close.
I guess the low there makes it
We
Italian.
got an infinite loop going.
You're just gonna repeat me saying that over and over again?
Can you tell him to lower the IFV? It's destroying my ear.
Should I have
know
worn nice
those
socks?
letters.
Can you see my feet under this table? No.
I'm wearing mismatched socks. Will they
We
focus on
compared
that?
sock game. What's
Oh,
up?
I'm not wearing good socks right now. I wore my funky socks yesterday.
I just grabbed 2 individual
Yes.
socks on the way out of my room today.
Calroy.
You had your one-on-one today with Judy?
Yeah. It was pretty good. She laughed.
Good
She
evening
said
and
you've been
welcome to
decimating
WHCS
people on
Radio's
Facebook.
first ever. Yes, I can hear you, Calroy.
You're very good at it.
Much better.
No, she said you've been decimating them. Yeah.
Jeez.
I've always got to be careful because I'm an RA. I can't
Good.
make residents
Try not to
feel
get
like
me
I
when
just
I'm.
like
Try
them
not to get me when I'm
with
making
my
a point, so I don't wanna
Facebook
lose that train of thought,
commentary.
okay?
Big
Like
adjustment?
afterwards.
Yeah,
Okay.
very much so. I've always got Adam Stason
So after
lurking
the
in the
video
wings.
broadcast, I'm Henry
Say some
Furberger.
racist.
I'm Ricardo
and
Machado. Do you also want to make a shout out
Is
bigoted
that
to
the guy everybody was
Hunter News
commenting
Now?
on, like your most recent post?
No.
Post?
Yeah.
Like, why are you friends with him?
Yeah.
What you don't?
I just deleted all his
respect?
comments later.
That's fine.
No,
I'm fucking with
they,
this.
they cool. But
They cool.
I will
used
only
to
say
not
it if
be
you
so
say
crazy,
I'm Henry
but
Furberger from
To be
WCS
honest, I
Radio.
think
I'll just say I'm Henry
he was like
Furberger.
in Europe
Yeah,
during
so
one of the
Ricardo
big
Montero, it's
terrorist
all good.
attacks, and I think it like warped his
Because
worldview.
otherwise we're just,
You
we're
gotta
just
watch the
saying
Vox
things.
video,
Right.
Your Brain on Terrorism. So,
Check that out.
I'm my own
I'm not
man.
a fan of Vox.
True that. And me as
See what
well.
left they
Are
are.
you excited?
Yeah,
You've done this before, right?
I have.
How does it feel?
I feel like that's always a
This will be my
different.
first.
Familiar?
Sometimes
This
I'll
is my
message Nick
first
and I'm like,
time,
Nick, give me
like,
the
directly.
unbiased.
I've done this many
Yeah,
times.
but Nick,
Right.
Nick,
You're never like, cut
Nick
it up.
wouldn't intentionally lie to me
Alright,
about
nice.
stuff. Yeah.
But this is the first time I do it
It's
live.
like I can't go to like Katira or something. But no.
You gotta find the middle ground for everything.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna try to keep this under an hour and make sure the answers are concise and direct.
Do my best.
I like the sound of my voice, so.
Matt, do you think you think I don't know that? Come on.
I just hope that we get questions where you can figure out what they're asking.
We do.
Sometimes people just ask very. I know they're gonna pop up there.
Yeah,
I mean,
'cause
like those questions. Sometimes
like
they're
who it
very
is.
When people
roundabout.
type,
Yeah.
they get a little
yeah.
illiterate.
Yeah. Or like their questions just won't make sense the way that they typed it.
I was on the Stouthville show
right.
once, and they had something like this, but they filtered
My
the
dad is like, better
questions.
kick it off. I'm getting a beer.
I gotta send this link to my mom. Once the live stream's over, it's still up online for good,
Yeah.
right? It's not like
Okay.
Facebook where they review
Yeah.
it, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
We
I'll
gotta
show it to
make our
my
parents
parents
watch.
later.
Why not?
I mean, my parents were watching. Come on, this is a big moment for all of us.
Yeah.
5 minutes, okay.
Good.
Alex will be kind of double against Floyd.
I don't think anyone that knows me is watching, which is probably good.
That's all right. Yeah, less
I'm
stress.
watching.
Huh?
I said I know you. I'm watching.
My mom,
You're also. Yeah.
I told my mom I was doing something. She was like, all right. Like, she didn't ask me. She wasn't like, yo, what's the link? What do you do? No, she was like, oh, cool.
That's how my parents are too.
What's the link?
He's like, why are you in a suit? He was like, oh, I'm interviewing people live on TV. Oh.
Do you want to do network television broadcast? News anchor?
Do we have like a music cut it?
Maybe.
Do we have like a music tune in like intro?
I don't
I
think
like
so.
Kanye West.
Somebody would have to
Yeah,
make
he
that.
does.
I'm a big Kanye fan. Put on Famous. It's a good one to come into.
Guys, are we going to use the same tally system with the
Flashing
cameras?
lights.
That's a
Where the red light will indicate what camera is on?
flash.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they got the red
We gotta
lights,
look at
one,
the
two.
cameras. I forgot about that.
No, I'm gonna look at these guys.
Yeah. Okay.
The cameras aren't
All
even
right,
here.
so we'll just, do something.
Okay.
Well, I'm guessing the only thing we're doing is looking at them, so it doesn't really matter. Like, we're not going to get like a single, right? except for the beginning and the end.
Yeah, I'll send you the
So we're
questions.
gonna be picking questions off this screen.
Yeah,
right
I'll send
here.
it to you right now.
No, we're going to
After
be
an
asking you
hour.
questions for the first.
I mean when they're giving the questions.
Yeah.
How big is that font gonna be?
Though we'll get somebody to read it to us.
I'm so bright,
Look at that.
and you are
Oh
gone.
shit! 1 second.
You're like Slender
Gave it to
Man
the
right
exact
now.
wrong
You
person.
can't see me.
Yeah. I'm so shiny.
I look good.
Sorry, wrong
The
person.
sweater was a good move, rather than the T-shirt.
Makes you look person relatable to the student body.
Yeah.
People in suits are not very friendly.
Yeah, I know. Learned that from Abdul Rad when he was commissioner.
Me?
Is it just that camera for the Adobe Connect that has like a really high exposure?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We try to adjust it, that's what's
Probably fix
delayed.
that.
But that's just for the Adobe Connect. That's not what's being streamed.
Got it.
Let's do this.
So,
Always
Chris,
my
you
dream
are
mission.
the no longer a senior senator,
Executive board
Never a
member.
senior
executive
senator.
board
Yeah.
member
Brookdale.
Yes.
At Brookdale.
from
Yeah.
Brookdale.
Yes.
Hey
You guys
guys.
have more water?
More water?
Yeah,
You
by any
finished
chance?
yours? Damn. All
I'm
right.
a thirsty man. Maybe during the commercial.
Hey, do you have any water for Matt?
Just by any chance. Yeah. Thank you.
All right.
During the first town hall, the second town hall we had actually drank a lot.
You got yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
My
you
mouth
were
gets
talking
dry
the
when I
whole time. You
speak,
must
yeah.
have been dried out. Are we streaming live the video?
Oh, look at that. Coming up clutch. Oh. Thank you.
Attaboy, Jake.
What does the W stand
And what's the W stand for?
Oh god.
In your radio.
Guys, you gotta keep the chatter down. You're gonna make me crack up on air. I swear.
I'm not part of WCS. So.
Oh, something fell off me here.
Yep.
So am I gonna be in on camera 3 first?
Jake.
Am I gonna be on camera 3 first?
for? Jake, what does the W stand
Yeah. Which camera should I be? Which camera should I be looking into for the intro?
W stands for. Oh,
Wait,
okay.
I'm gonna look at
Oh,
camera 2.
Where
moving to
Hunter
camera
College
3.
Speaks.
Oh, okay. Can they still hear me? My little thing came off.
What little thing?
My little microphone.
Oh. Put it here,
All right.
where mine is.
All right.
That
No, the other
finger
way.
shrink.
We're having us. Matt's mic came off.
No? Which way?
Matt's
Flip it
mic
again?
came off the other way. That way. Yeah, that's the mic. This is the mic.
Hey, so he wants the mic on the inside.
Oh, okay.
So like this? Yeah.
I don't know.
No.
It just. I think the clip is just not good.
All right. So. All right. So are you you're gonna cue me? So I'm gonna start on camera 2, and then it's gonna cue over to camera 3, correct?
I'm a mess.
It's okay. Good. I'm just making sure. Just
Do I
want
need
to.
to
I want
know?
to make sure this is nice and choreographed.
For sure.
Hmm?
For sure.
For show. Yeah, I know.
We're live right now?
Yes, we are.
Hey. Oh.
So much pressure.
Yeah.
He's doing
All right,
his
you
best.
got it. You nailed it.
He's got an injured thumb.
Yeah, I just gotta suck that up.
Thank you.
All right, he's nailed it. He's got the mic placement. Good evening and welcome to WHCS Radio's first ever live video broadcast. I'm Henry Fernberger.
And I'm Ricardo Montero.
Tonight we have USG President Matt LaCastro and USG Executive Board member of the Brookdale residents, Chris Barnes. Tonight we'll be discussing the proposed referendum to eliminate the massive surplus which has accumulated from unspent student activity fees. We're going to try to keep this under an hour, so let's keep the answers concise and direct. So let's begin. How's it going, guys?
Good, yeah. Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure to be here. Excited to be streaming live to the Hunter students right now and getting to talk about this very important issue. We're always happy to engage the students here at Hunter.
Yeah, that's exciting. So
Yeah.
what is the purpose of this referendum?
Sure. So I've gone over the spiel a few times, so I have it down pat now. So I'll give you a quick run through of the overview of what we're doing here.
Sure.
What is a referendum? A referendum is when we take a look at the allocations of our student activity fees. Right now, the current way that the student activity fee is allocated is based off of 3 separate fees that we pay as Hunter students. If you're a full-time student in the spring and in the fall, you pay $83.65 each semester. If you're a part-time student, you pay $53.60, and if you're a summer student, you pay $25.70. What we're doing here is, as you said and mentioned, there's a huge surplus, over $1 million that's accumulated over the past several years. And we want to take a look at how can we reallocate more efficiently and up-to-date, reflective of what Hunter students desire, this allocation. Within the earmarks here, that's what receives the funds. We see where there's a surplus accumulating, and using tabling efforts, data collection, and number evaluation, we came to a conclusion that we think is pretty fair and just, that will eliminate the surplus and bring to Hunter some great new initiatives.
Can you define what tabling initiatives are?
Sure. So tabling is something that the undergraduate student government does, and some clubs do it as well. The little tables on the 3rd floor of Hunter West and Hunter North, even in the main entrance of Hunter West, where clubs and USG can set up camp and solicit student input, give out free burritos like we do occasionally, and engage the student body either in conversation or in some sort of cultural or entertainment experience, something to promote your club, your organization, or solicit input.
Right. So for this precise issue, when the USG was tabling, did you guys sit there and get burritos and bring people in to tell them about this?
Yeah.
Or did you guys sit there and wait for the students to come to you?
So at every event that USG has, we strive to receive student input from every event. When we are there, we speak to all the students, making sure that we understand why they came to the event, how did they hear about the event, and would they want to come to an event like this again. So that's one way that we collect input from the student body directly. 2, when we table, it's a combination of both, because when we give out burritos, we're speaking to students while they're online, we're going about whatever new initiative we have at the moment. Recently, it's been the Student Stand-Up campaign against sexual assault. We go down the line and we speak to students about that while soliciting more input. So it's a combination of both, giving out things and just setting up camp. There's not always the opportunity to give out things to students.
Right. I just want to make sure, because the controversy for this referendum is that club leaders and students are saying that they didn't have enough information about it. So I just want you to define specifically for the referendum what the tabling efforts were.
So tabling was used to collect general Hunter student input. When we speak about what club leaders feel when they say they didn't feel like they were consulted, we use 2 methods along with tabling to consult our club leaders. Online surveys, their emails have been provided to the Office of Student Activities. It's required to be a club leader, and USG has access when requested to these emails. These emails are updated constantly as members change positions. And then 2, our club walkthroughs. USG officers go throughout the club community, and our members of USG, many of them are in the clubs at Hunter, be it InterVarsity, MSA, whatever club you can think of.
So do you mean
we are
specifically
reflective of
clubs
the
or
students.
earmarks?
Clubs and earmarks, because when we talk about clubs and earmarks, they seem to overlap to students at times. And when we look at earmarks, we use administrative information, since some of these earmarks seem like an administrative body in some senses. So they have more communication with the administration. We receive input from the administration about what these organizations are contributing to Hunter, what they need from Hunter, and what they could use from these funds. Earmarks such as the Radio Club, WHCS, is more oriented towards the club community. And then you have other earmarks like the Office of Accessibility, which doesn't necessarily reflect a club per se, but
Right.
more of a service. So it's a multilateral approach here of how we gather information, and we try to be as intense and precise about it as possible to gather as much as we can within this time frame. And the challenge that we often face is that we treat everybody equal in this process because we consider it a measure of activity on campus when you respond and engage back with us. There's a burden within a democracy, within any sort of institution, to participate when you are engaged. And when we don't see on the other end that being upheld, it's a sign to us that there is a diminishing interest within that earmark club or organization.
So despite the fact that some of these earmarks might be holding events, giving that money back to the student body, whether or not they fill out a survey is your judgment of whether or not they're participating?
No, we also look at their events and their expenditures as well. When we talk about events and attendance, we could see all those within our spending records. When we look at the CA and College Association guidelines, CA stands for College Association, we see what events clubs have or earmarks have, and we get a sense of how many people attended because that's something you note within your earmark, what your expected attendance is, and those forms also go to the Office of Student Activities where you say your expected attendance for people at an event.
So you're saying that all the clubs and earmarks are treated equally, but at the same time you're saying that some clubs are more ineffective than others, which in itself is not equal because that means you're saying that some clubs are not as effective as others. So to whose discretion is left which clubs are effective and which ones aren't?
Yeah. We treat all clubs equal here. We're not the judge of who's better than who. All we look at is what is the level of participation, and these are the measurements we chose. When you talk about equality in the way you're describing it, you're talking about club input into the Hunter College community. We have no influence over that. It's all up to the club and their ability to engage with Hunter College. If we see that an earmark or a club is not hosting events, is that inequality? No, that is, an organization that is not, one, using their funds, and two, not engaging with Hunter College students.
Also, before we move further, I think we might be getting ahead of ourselves. What is the issue with this $1 million surplus?
Yes, so in September, we had a meeting with President Raab, who once again has brought up this surplus that's accumulating. In my 3 years of being in the undergraduate student government, I originally was a member of the Faculty Student Disciplinary Committee.
So it started accumulating in the
Before that even.
Okay.
So it's been accumulating for quite some time, but I'll talk from when I, engaged and came to Hunter. And then I became a senior senator, then I was vice president, and I recently became president of USG. She brought it up to us again in our semesterly meeting with her and explained to us the risk that this posed to Hunter College was a state audit. If an audit occurs, this puts not just the student activity funds at risk, it puts all initiatives here at Hunter at risk, our general funding. The state doesn't care if we get our funding from the student activity fee, if we get it from the city, if we get it from taxpayer dollars. All they care is that there's $1 million lying around and nobody's using it. And when they see that, they come in and they cut in other areas. And it also hurts our efforts to keep fighting for an affordable CUNY. Even though Cuomo has pushed for free CUNY and SUNY schools throughout New York State, right now there is a proposed tuition increase because that announcement that Cuomo made has not yet been enacted in legislation. So other procedures are still going on. So we're still fighting for an affordable CUNY.
well, that's an issue unto itself.
Yeah.
But
It puts it at risk, these other efforts, these monumental things that can fundamentally change the lives of students when we allow this money to just lie around.
right. So let's get back into figuring out what your source work was for making certain budget changes.
Sure.
So how did you make certain budget increases?
Sure. So we looked at spending habits over the course of 5 years. We looked at whether or not a earmark or club or group was growing or shrinking. If they had a surplus, that was a flag, not necessarily an end-all be-all notification that we would want to put them in the column for a possible decrease because we were looking to remove surpluses. But we wanted to make sure they weren't outliers, so we looked at the average. And then we also looked at, in terms of, participation, growth, expenditures, student input, what do students want, and where we would have the wiggle room to take funds while not damaging the ability for these earmarks and clubs to operate on campus. That was the main priority here, to allow Hunter to not shrink in any area, but to continue to grow in its entirety. That way we have a more equitable system here at Hunter that impacts all students' lives, not just a select few.
Do you have any particular clubs in mind that you made increases that seem to fit this criteria that warranted an increase?
Yeah, so when we look at this, and we'll use the term earmarks,
Earmarks,
because
excuse me.
clubs are a different earmark here, and we'll
They're
have a
actually an item
discussion
in that.
about that later.
Yeah.
We looked at recreation and intramurals. We see that students have been demanding more pool hours, more rec hours. They also are hoping to have more classes like self-defense workshops or yoga, which the athletics department, which is in charge of this recreation and intramurals fund, has begun to invest in. So we wanted to make sure that they have this room to grow, and that these classes and that these resources are available for longer hours for evening students, early morning students, even midday students that might come in for one quick class and
Right.
want to hit the gym. We looked at music and performing arts, which have received a new building here at Hunter, signifying their growth and a increasing student population oriented in those fields. And then we looked at the Office of Accessibility, because they could always use more funds. When we looked at their budgeting expenditures, we want to make sure Hunter's as accessible as possible to all students, and that's not necessarily a cheap expense, but it's an expense that we need to have, and something that we should be involved with as students fighting for our fellow students.
All right, so I think we should get into the topic that everybody's really interested in the most, the
Yeah.
cuts.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it. So what was your criteria that you used to make certain budget cuts?
So we used three points to determine a cut. One, does a surplus exist? Two, has the administration, either at the Hunter College, city, or state, agreed to cover the costs of whatever this earmark provides? And does this earmark receive outside funding? And then three, student participation and the changing demographics of Hunter. The last time a referendum occurred was over 20 years ago, and I think we could all agree that's quite some time, and we've all changed. We didn't have computers like the Mac you have in front of you 20 years ago. The way we act as students and the way we engage has fundamentally shifted. So using those three criteria, we dug in using all of that data we had to determine where cuts could be made without impacting the function of these earmarks. That was an important aspect of all this, that the earmark would not have an inability to function. They would still be able to have the same events, buy the same equipment that they always have. It would be the unused funds that we were trying to move away.
I think the main problem here is the process in which earmarks spend that money, because they have to go through the CA, right? And the CA has to approve that money, so they are able to have access to that money. So a lot of clubs have been upset because they say that it's not that there's no student participation which caused the surplus, is that the process is so complicated that it piles up, and when they're denied requests. So how do we make that simpler? Because this is obviously money that we want to spend or want to cut.
Yeah.
So how do we deal with the CA? How are we going to restructure that so clubs can actually have access to this money?
So as you may know, over the past 4 years, this has also been a question that USG addressed. And to clarify, the referendum is a student-led initiative, not a student government-led initiative. The CA corrections are a student government-led initiative.
Okay.
So there is a separation in responsibility there. I'm the face of the referendum. USG is the face of CA reform.
Are you not the face of USG?
I am the face of USG as well, but I'm a man who wears many hats. When we look at this issue, I find that we keep focusing on the CA being the only solution. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. It is a solution that requires dynamic ideas.
Right.
And a dynamic idea is to have a referendum and reform the CA.
I mean, I think we agree
yeah.
that the referendum is necessary. I think there are a lot of earmarks that are underused. For
Yeah.
example, you could say for childcare or Hunter Envoy. I mean, childcare, only 20 students use that at the moment. Hunter Envoy is pretty much non-existent. The president actually resigned just the other day. So I think you're right in that we need this referendum, but the only thing is that you didn't consider the issues that these earmarks have with the CA prior to putting in place this referendum.
We have been considering that, the issues that earmarks and clubs face with the CA. We do it on a yearly basis. Every year we send out surveys, we collect data, we table to hear the students' frustrations. USG experience these same frustrations, and we also see these obstacles in which the CA, constructs. And that's why I believe that we need to reform the CA and have the referendum.
Wait, so were you soliciting USG information and resources to make this referendum?
Okay, so I'm just going to jump in here really quickly. So the conversation right now, you're speaking about two things at the same time, right? So his answer just now was speaking about the CA guidelines. Reformation of the CA guidelines is something that didn't start this year. It started 4 years ago. When I first started in student government, this was a problem then. When I became the residence hall commissioner at the dorms, there's a lot of paperwork that has to be done for things like Brookdale and the other residence halls that have to go through that CA office. And that's when I faced some of the problems there, and I learned that this was a large fight. One of the things, until CA guidelines are fully reformed and it becomes easier for students, there are things that students can do to help this paperwork go forward. The problem right now is that a lot of people see this financial paperwork as one of the last priorities of doing things as clubs. The CA does have workshops in the beginning of the year, almost every single 2 weeks, showing people how to do things like financial paperwork. There's a financial booklet online with which it gives a step-by-step process with examples for every single piece of paperwork you could have to do in, and you can also make appointments with the CA office to do that paperwork. I understand that students feel weird about going inside an office and sitting down with another adult that you don't really know and having them step-by-step walk you through that paperwork, but some of that is necessary. I spent 3 months before I became, I had an ease of access to doing that sort of paperwork, and I understand that with a lot of other places, there's a larger change between e-boards from one year to another year, and I get that it's difficult. But right now, the biggest problem is that saying that it's impossible to do the paperwork isn't going to broach any sort of conversation, because the CA members are people who that's their job, is to sit there and go through this paperwork again and again and again. So someone telling them that it's impossible to learn this paperwork, that's not really a conversation. There's no change happening there. What you're saying is that you want to be able to spend the money without having to go through these levels. But if you don't have to turn in receipts, if you don't have to get proof of insurance for things and things like that, how are we going to even make sure that student money is being used fairly at all?
Well, I don't think those are very good examples, just because I feel like the issue isn't necessarily exactly the hoops they need to jump through, but the speed at which these hoops are set before us, right? I mean, I think the expedience or lack of expedience from the CA is really one of the most concerning issues. People put in purchase orders or requests and they get answered 3 weeks later, or they might have to move back events as a result of that. I think that's the main issue here. But I think, so for these cuts, a main part of it was whether or not these cuts had these earmarks had a surplus. So what do you attribute these surpluses to?
We look at it as changing desire for Hunter students here on campus, that the surplus accumulated for a few reasons, that there's a lack of student interest in these earmarks. It's been a long time since they've changed, as well as students are overwhelmed. We all know the stress of being a student. It's hard to spend funds, and when we don't update the allocations with these two ideas in mind, we see these surpluses accumulating. We need to understand that some interests fade and others, come forth, that students might want a PB grant. Now, PB is a relatively new idea, and it's been something that I campaigned on when I was wearing my
Right. For all
other
those
hat
that
and,
don't know what PB is, that is the participatory budget grant. Continue.
Yeah, and we see that students are demanding more physically intensive activities here at Hunter. They want these rec classes. They want more self-defense, more rec hours, more basketball, more swimming. And we want to respond to these students and be accessible to them and show that we're hearing their calls and their cries. I can't tell you how many times I've had students come into my office, not my office, the USG office specifically, saying, "Oh, do you have menstrual care products in here?" thinking that we do and something that we should be providing as a student organization. With this in mind, we wanted to make sure that when we looked at the surpluses, we were taking from those earmarks that we saw a dwindling student interest in.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Great. No applause rail? No?